Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema. Sit down. You see the Marvel shirt is on. You see what's up on the TV. You know what we're getting ready to talk about, so let's not waste any time, because there is plenty to talk about when you're talking zombie Avengers. What am I talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler-filled into What If, Episode 5, What If Zombies. And as I said in my non-spoiler review, I just love that the title was that simple, man. Like, what if zombies? Like, if zombies came to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, what would happen? And we get to certainly see that. And if you don't want anything spoiled, because we are about to spoil literally everything about this episode, you can check out my non-spoiler review right up there. But this was a lot of fun. I just enjoyed it in all of the weird ways that a zombie film can make you enjoy things. Like, I'm a sucker for horror movies. You guys know that. And I'm a sucker, obviously, and built-in comic book nerd. So, like, anytime you're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm happy. To see those get blended together inside of an animated show, it just tickled me, man. I like when you get to the reactions that are coming up, you're gonna see me laughing quite a lot, because the dialogue and the writing from A.C. Bradley in this episode is just fantastic. I mean, Bruce Banner gets a lot of good one-liners. Okoye might be the comedic MVP of the episode, man. She made me laugh so hard. And then, of course, Scott Lang always gonna bring some jokes. And when you see Scott in the way in which he is, which is bodiless and only a head, there are some excellent Scott Lang dad jokes to be had throughout the episode. And while all the humor and stuff really hit in a big bad way, like the kind of creepy horror zombie gory type stuff really worked too. And it's one of those, like, you wonder, like, we've seen them do live action Iron Man, but, like, would they go as far as, like, letting Wasp fly into the mouth of a zombie, get into their system, and then expanding to their normal size to blow them up? Like, I don't know if you can see that in live action, but to get it in an animated form, and granted, it's not blood, but it's like a black sludge every time they do something to one of the zombies. Like, it gives that desired effect that you would get in a zombie movie, and I just loved all that stuff, and I loved what, A.C. Bradley brings to the plate with this one. I mean, I love that he does, Spider-Man's how to survive a zombie apocalypse videos, like, very much similar in fashion to how we get, the rules for Zombieland. You get Spider-Man's rules to surviving this zombie apocalypse, and it's great, like, the people they bring in and what the rules are, like, and we'll get to those as we go through the ep, but, like, all that stuff just hit really, really well, and, like, the characters they brought in this time, I like this Avengers grouping that we have, even though it dwindles down to a very small group by the end, which, is what should happen in a zombie story. But, like, I like that we were riding around with a bunch of different people. Like, your main Avengers, they became zombies. So, you're riding with Spider-Man and Bucky and Okoye and Sharon Carter and Bruce Banner. I feel like I'm forgetting some people. I mean, T'Challa eventually pops in there. We get Vision for a little bit. We get Scott's one head. Just Scott's, because he'd have more than one head. Just Scott's head. We get the cape of levitation, the cloak of levitation. So we get to get some cape time in here. Who hangs out with Spider-Man for a little bit, as we've seen in some of the images and stuff from the trailers. But also gets to hang out with Scott, and I think that's the home base, at least in the zombie Avengers world. And that's the other thing too. Like, I love that Bradley gets this story to a place where, like, you're on the way to the cure, right? Like, you have the Mind Stone, you find out that frequency doesn't mesh with the frequency of the zombies, which are created, also a genius stroke from him, by a quantum disease that Janet Van Dyne has. Like, I love that she comes back with Ant-Man, and they're both zombies because she got a disease that turned her into a zombie in the quantum realm, and then that spreads, and it really spreads globally once the Avengers, like, catch it. Like, all that stuff just worked wonderfully, and to see them kind of go through that whole story and get to the end where it's like, we got the cure, man, like, we can broadcast this frequency worldwide will cure everybody. And Uatu comes in right at the end. It's like, yeah, but sometimes when a group of people is willing to do whatever it takes to save the day, might also bring about the end of the world. You see friggin' THANOS as a zombie wearing the gauntlet with every single gem except that Mind Stone, and you're just like, I want the sequel, man. I want to see what Avengers Infinity War via zombies would look like. Basically, man, you'd have THANOS coming after that Mind Stone in Wakanda. I want to see that story, and that's the thing that I really like about this show, is that while it does create an anthology feel with all these one-off stories, every one of them gets left in a way where you're like, I would go back to that. I'm still interested in that story. Can we go back to that? How can we pull these characters all together so that we get to hang out with them all the time? That's the stuff that really, really works for me. And then I did want to call out, since I didn't get to in my non-spoiler review, a little bit of the voice cast list. And as I said, we got all these characters and everybody's back. I mean, you got Ruffalo, Boseman, Bettany, Stan, Evangeline Lilly, Rudd, Favreau, because he shows up as Happy for a little bit, which is a lot of fun. You got Denai Guerrilla, you got Emily Van Camp. David Dastmalchian shows up as the crazy guy. Perfect for Spider-Man's videos. But I love having him in here because I just love Dastmalchian, and his Kurt brings a lot of humor also with it to the episode, which was great. So I love seeing him in there. And then you get to the Spider-Man Peter Parker. And, it's one of these things where watching these episodes, it kind of feels like people who are still under contract at Marvel have lent their voices, and people that are no longer under contract have not. We haven't gotten, Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans or Chris Pratt, even though, there's another Guardians coming. I don't think he's under contract past that. But then there's Spider-Man. And, watching the episode, initially I was like, that's not Tom Holland's voice. But then sometimes I was like, maybe that is Tom Holland's voice. Well, my gut instinct was right. It wasn't Tom Holland's voice. And my thought is, I wonder if Sony can put a block on that, right? Spider-Man is technically theirs. And even though Holland is under contract, he's under contract with Sony. So he might not be allowed to come over and pop here. But Hudson Thames, who plays Parker / Spider-Man, does an excellent job. Like I said, there are times where he really does come off kind of sounding like Holland, and it's close enough where it doesn't throw you too bad. Initially, it kind of was like, is that Tom Holland? But outside of that, there are plenty of moments where, by the end of the episode, I was like, maybe that is Tom Holland's voice. Because we've also heard, sometimes the voice delivery in the booths and whatnot is a little different than real life. I mean, we've heard, T'Challa sounded way more like Boseman's T'Challa in this episode than the first episode. But there are moments where his voice seemed a little off. Even, with some of the other characters that pot up, Rooker was on and off sometimes. So I was like, maybe it really is Holland, but it is not. And because it's not, I do think that Hudson Thames deserves a shout out, because I thought he did a great job. So, outside of that, I think the only other thing to really mention from the spoiler overall thought standpoint would be the animation. The animation's great here. I love the way that the zombies work. I love that we get a shot of Cap at one point when he comes on and his shield is covered in speckled blood spatter, which is the second time now we have seen Cap's shield covered in blood on a Disney Plus show. But that was cool how they kill some of the zombies. Like I said, the way that they either explode or their blood is more like a black sludge. And the shadows, man, the lighting, this whole episode is spectacular. I mean, specifically toward the end, as we get kind of a sunset type deal going on. It was funny, the sun was setting in the episode on my rewatch as the sun was rising here, so I was like, yo. But just the way the shadows play, this episode, shadows pop big time, whether you're outside, whether you're down in the subway, whether you're in a hangar. Just the way that the lighting hits really does elevate the animation in a way that makes it quite unique, especially stylistically, to the way Marvel's approached it. And again, it just really hits here, and like I said, the zombie animation is a lot of fun. But that's it, man. I want to talk about anything else because we're going to talk about it all. But before we get there, you got to see what I was doing during the episode. So let's throw it back to the old past. What if watching C-Man and take a look at all of his reactions. Take it away, past C-Man!
Oh, no. Come on.
Hey, zombies already?
That sort of seems like overkill.
Oh no. Oh, he's a zombie already.
Oh.
And Zombie Strange can use magic? What is going on? Ah! Oh! Get him, King! Oh, it's Wong. It's Zombie Wong. Oh no. Oh!
Oh no.
Oh no.
Don't eat.
What?
What now? Oh god. Okay, that's
Oh, is that Wasp?
Oh no. Oh, I've got a bomb.
And a giant ant. Oh, so those are all little ants.
With the giant ants? Who are you?
All that's left.
Don't eat me, don't eat me, don't eat me.
Oh,
don't
Spidey.
eat me.
Relax. I'm just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Oh yeah? Well then, what the hell happened to the neighborhood?
Many great catastrophes. This one sprang from a.
Oh,
But in
snap.
this universe,
Joining everything
Janet
together.
K9 contracted. That happened.
Oof, that happened.
Alas,
Oh no, Scott. Poor Scott.
the Avengers' heroism.
Black Panther.
seemed human.
So you want to survive the zombie apocalypse?
New York. The Mets. The Christ.
I'm not single. I'm saving myself for Thor. Happy.
Do I really have to be wearing this?
Safety of the world depends on it. And actions on
Resident weirdo.
zombie virus.
Ah, Bucky.
Your robot arm is waterproof. How handy. Unintended.
You know all I have to do is squeeze, right?
Okay. Easy killer. How about you skip the shower and grab the body?
Oh, Sharon.
Just showing Dr. Banner the orientation video.
Okoye. Oh, that's so cool. Oh,
It's Camp Lehigh in New Jersey, Shield's first base of operations.
Jersey.
If it happened, then you'd need to fabricate a key.
Well, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, you gotta go to Jersey.
Oh, happy.
Apocalypse is different.
Oh. Oh, they were small.
Boom goes the dynamite. That was solid burn on all of us.
Wait, is that the small chin?
No.
Are you saying blam?
Was I?
Oh no. Happy. He keeps saying bland. Oh. Come on, Spidey. Oh, happy.
Blam.
Oh.
That was your friend. Sorry about that.
I should be sad, but I'm not.
Let's go.
Oh man. Oh no, Pete! Oh. Cloak levitation. Oh, Peter! Oh, dude, Cloak is the MVP of the zombie apocalypse.
Did it. Destination came.
Oh, they got
You've had
Sharon.
enough, Cap.
Oh, it's Cap. Oh, Sharon.
Bucky!
Oh! Nice. Buck. Oh, Cap's split in two, though. Now Bucky's got a shield. Oh,
Guys, I'm covered in Sharon. Hand sanitizer.
oh no! Oh, look at Watu. Oh, that's a lot of zombies. That's creepy. Oh, the fence is broken.
Scale anything.
What is going
Must
on?
be careful. Baba Yaga nears. I can feel her.
Baba who now?
Baba Yaga.
Oh no! I totally just jump scared you. I'm so sorry.
Oh, Vision!
Oh, Vision. Here.
Ta-da! See for yourself.
Wait, who said that?
Was it ghost?
Oh, damn. Hey, would somebody turn me around?
Scott.
That's not my entrance. You know, I need to get this thing motorized. Hey!
He's just ahead! Oh no!
No.
I know what you're thinking. I've lost weight. Thank you for noticing. But don't worry, I'm not gonna let it go to my head. Sorry, I tend to process traumatic events with dad jokes. Drives Hank crazy. Drove Hank crazy. Oh my God.
Love your job.
Sorry, I know. It's just what I wouldn't give to get chewed out by that old grump one last time. God, I did it again.
Well, the operative point is I cured.
The last human sanctuary on Earth.
I'll
Yeah.
canvass the base.
Conda.
See if I can find his transports.
Bucky,
T'Challa.
she's ready you.
Who did this to you?
Her name is
Oh, it's Wanda.
While your anger is predictable, I can assure you.
Well, admissions to
Uh-oh.
She hasn't eaten in days.
Oh, no, no small chin. Oh, man. Oh, no. Oh!
thanks. I feel like
Oh, no. Oh, my God. Oh, Vision. Oh, no. Why is Vision always equal to himself? That poor guy. Oh no. Oh no, Bruce!
I saved, big guy.
Oh, his arm went green. Nice. Oh no. Roar! Come on, give me the roar. Oh no, 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 no. Come on, show me the Hulk. Yes!
We did it! We really did it! No, don't chase it! Doesn't anybody here watch horror movies?
Oh no! Oh no, not Giant Hope! Oh no!
Trust us.
Oh no!
I'm sorry.
Just,
Even if it might bring an end to the universe.
oh no! Zombie Thanos? Wait, that's where you end the episode? Dude, they better be bringing us back to some of these stories. You gotta leave me on Zombie Thanos with the gauntlet. Oh man, that was so good. No man, I do get a kick out of watching myself, like on the watch back, and sometimes, like I think I react to things bigger than I do when I watch it back. I'm like, oh man, and then sometimes, like I just enjoy watching myself enjoy the heck out of this episode, and this episode in particular was super enjoyable. I mean, like I said, the humor is so good. I mean, Okoye's got so many one-liners, Lang's got so many one-liners, Banner brings a bunch of one-liners, like. The humor is just hitting on top of this, again, very dark, kind of gruesome episode of What If. And I'm so here for all those things. So now that you've seen the reactions, I want to go through this thing, top to bottom, and just talk about everything that came up in this episode of What If. And we start off, once again, seeing something that we should be familiar with. I love that the episode starts with, like the What If stuff stops and you almost get like a Star Warsian type open where like as the opening credits are like fading and you're coming in, you're just sitting on the galaxy and the camera pans down and you're seeing all the stars, and then all of a sudden you start to see the Bifrost and Uatu comes in and talks about Hulk being sent back to Earth with a very important message to give everybody. And only this time when he crashes through the roof of the Sanctum Sanctorum and he ends up in Doctor Strange's staircase, there's nobody home, and you're like, oh man, like knowing that the zombies are coming, you're like, oh, Bruce is already coming back to something that he doesn't want to deal with. And that also answers, like, where Thor is, right? Like, Thor is not on Earth at this point in time in the MCU. So I like how they pick specific moments that allow us to know exactly where we are in the timeline of the MCU as we see these different things unfold. But the cool thing here is the change is not what we see at the beginning. The change comes a little later. So after he crashes, you see the cloak of levitation is actually kind of watching him. And then he says, "Has anybody got any clothes?" And the next thing you do, you see him coming out the door. And he's got like some sorcerer training clothes on, maybe from Wong's closet, possibly Doctor Strange. But you see him go outside, and now you're in that's very similar shot and situation as what we get in Infinity War when Maw and the Cull Obsidian show up in New York, and Iron Man has come to see Banner, and they all come out together. Well, nobody's there, so by the time Banner comes out and all that starts going down, you got Maw going on like his little speech about what they're doing for Thanos, and all of a sudden you just see a portal open up. And you're like, what? And you see like, and even the way they do this is kind of like creepy horror, like setup, kind of unnerving. As you see like the tips of a hand coming through, like in a very weird, like creepy kind of way, and then you can tell it's Iron Man's glove, and you see it get right next to Maw's head, and pew, blast him right in the side. And you're like, oh, dude, like, maybe the Avengers are okay, and we get to see them turn into zombies. And then sure enough, the portal opens bigger, and you see 3 Avengers walk through. Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Wong. And they go to town on Maw and Obsidian. And it's great, because you got Banner in the background. This is where some of his humor's kicking in. Where he's just like, yeah, get them, guys. Like, he's going, and you know that there's like, as they continue to keep them in the shadows, you're like, nah, these guys are definitely already zombies. And the next thing you know, like, Wong and Iron Man and Doctor Strange just start going in, and they just start eating Maw and Obsidian, and you're like, wow, we are going full boat on the zombies. And like, even Banner's like, guys, I think you're taking it a little too far. And you get this like not as terrifying as it could be because it's animation, but like I think about like if you got to see Wong rip up from like Cull Obsidian's bio a big piece of him in his mouth, just ready to go. You're like, and they create creepy imagery. And I did really enjoy watching like Wong be the guy that comes up with like the piece of Cull hanging out of his mouth. But then right as they're kind of moving in to take on Banner, you get all right, Hulk, let's go, I really need you. And Hulk's like, no, all this stuff that's very similar from Infinity War. And right when you think it's probably over for Banner, and you're just like, oh man, we are going to really see like an all-out, Avengers zombie team. That Cape comes in, man, and starts going to work. He pulls Iron Man away and like flips him. Starts just going after everybody. And as it's kind of protecting Banner, you see behind Banner a portal open, and Wong starts to come through. And then you see him come, and he stops, and you get one of those moments where like, sometimes in zombie films you'll have a zombie that either is like attached to a chain, like you get in Shaun of the Dead, like when he's keeping them as like a pet almost. But you get that moment where something is holding that zombie back, and they're just like, arr, 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 like trying to eat your face. And that's what Wong's doing to Banner, and he's not. All of a sudden he stops, and then they flip back, and you see the cape is pulling him back through as it's like holding off everybody else. And then he spins Wong, which causes the portal to close. And like I said, when you're going into full boat buying into the zombie, like, phew, Wong decapitated, man. Like, Zombie Wong ain't making it to the end of the episodes. And in fact, none of these zombies are making it to the end of the episode, as they all kind of get taken out. But, like, you get, again, one of these wonderful things where you're not expecting, like, oh, snap, they cut Wong's head clean off. But that was a lot of fun, and then you're trying to figure out like what's next, like what could the Cape possibly do next? When all of a sudden, like as Iron Man is getting ready to like charge up his glove, this like just black speckled stuff comes whipping through, and you get like I wonder if this was maybe an original concept for the dusting, because you get this visual of all of the zombies being broken apart and kind of taken away until they get down to bones. And as we see who's behind all of this, when Wasp comes up to full size, you understand, oh, it's all these ants, and the ants are just taking all the flesh right off of the zombies, leaving them just as bones. Again, really creepy imagery, but like as I was watching it, it kind of was familiar to the dusting sequence. I was like, I wonder if one of the original concepts had the dusting just taking the flesh away from everybody and everybody dropping to bones and maybe crumbling, but maybe that was too creepy for Endgame or Infinity War. Whereas, animated, Marvel's pushing the boundaries a little bit, and I loved it. It was a beautiful, creepy piece of imagery, but I loved watching that as Hope kind of, comes up full. You just see Banner just reacting to everything that's happening. I think it's Iron Man like comes at her and she ends up decapitating him with a blast, and then one of the big then the giant ants show up too, and they start eating Tony's head, and Banner is just freaking out, and Hope's like, go with them, you'll be safe. He's like, with the giant? No, that doesn't sound safe at all. And as he's kind of like not wanting to be involved with the ants, shoom, here comes Spider-Man to save the day, grabs Banner and swings off. And as Banner's freaking out, he's like, hey, man, chill out, man. Like, I'm just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And Banner's like, well, then what the hell happened to the neighborhood? Because everybody's a zombie. So I love that. And then Uatu, takes us through what exactly happened. And we find out that it was Hope, much like what we got in Ant-Man, pushing to try to find her mom in the quantum realm. And you end up with Hank getting into the machine, going into the quantum realm, finding Janet, and when he sees her, she takes off the mask and she's a zombie. And you get this wonderful bit. Like, I can't give enough credit to Jeffrey Wright in what he does in this series. Like, you're the VO guy, although we do get to actually see him visually with his mouth moving again this week, as he kind of talks directly to us. But, like, his just performance is so exactly where it needs to be, man. Like, it's right here, but it gives you like these just small little blips or changes that hit the moments that need to hit, whether it's something heavy or in this case something really, really quite funny. It's like, 2 weeks prior to what we've just seen, Hank goes in, and as Janet like comes after him and creates the zombie apocalypse. Like Wanda tells us, like she's gotten this quantum disease that's turned her into like the undead. And as she goes at Hank and like you see him at the ground, you just hear Wanda go, "Oof, that happened." The timing and the delivery from Wright is just so good. And then you see them come back through the portal, and you hear like Scott's like, hi, Miss Van Dyne, like all ready to meet like his girl's mom for the first time. And as it comes up, like you see the zombies, and Hope shrinks down to a wasp and backs out. But the zombies jump on Scott before they can get to him, and he's toast. But that brings us to where we are, where now the outbreak has started, and within 24 hours from that hub in San Francisco, the entire Pacific Northwest ends up becoming zombies, mainly because the Avengers show up. And again, like Uatu's like, ironically enough, it was their heroism that sparked the full-on spread of the zombie apocalypse, because when they show up in San Francisco on the Golden Gate Bridge, what's awesome is when they come out of the Quinjet, it's Hawkeye, Black Widow, Iron Man, Cap, and T'Challa, which was so dope. I was like, oh man, like they picked up T'Challa, and like he's in with the group, which was really just cool to see. But when they come out, the zombies get right to him, because all of a sudden you just see like, Cap I think he gets ready to say like Avengers Assemble, and boom, something hits him and then he swats it like a bug, and you're like, oh no. Like if that's a bug, sure enough, it's little tiny Hank Pym, and he just got a bite on Cap. So the next thing you know, Cap's a zombie. All the Avengers get eaten, and because the Avengers are now zombies, the zombies are unstoppable, basically. Unless, of course, you know the rules. And this was just absolutely beautiful, where you get this kind of like, you see Spider-Man putting up like rules, or how to survive the zombie apocalypse or something like that, and you get like one of these videos from Spider-Man, and he introduces like other people who are still alive. First and foremost is Happy, so you get like a shot of Happy, you get Happy's name, and then like his stats, like the things that he's good at, and what's great with this man is he's wearing a shirt that's clearly just handwritten, like probably Peter must have done it for the video, but it says, I'm not single, I'm saving myself for Thor. It's like silly little things like that, man, really get me good. Then goes in like, step one, you gotta have long sleeves on. The less skin that's exposed, the safer you are. And that's where we meet Kurt, and just find out that the Smonchin's back. And I was like, for a minute, I was like, is that Holy crow, it is. It's Das Malchian doing his guy from Ant-Man. And he comes out playing the zombie, like trying to bite the arm of Happy. Which then moves right to step 2, which is hygiene. And you have Kurt again getting ready to like go near the shower as if he's a zombie. And Spidey's like, yeah, you know, like the less pheromones you're giving off, the better. So make sure you're hydrated. But it does leave you the most vulnerable to attack. And Kurt's like, surprise attack! And he whips open the curtain, and there's Bucky. And you find out that he's still okay. Which then leads you to step 3, which is always aim for the head. And you see Spider-Man's got like one of them like little Nerf guns with the bullet being like a suction cup arrow, and boom, shoots it right onto Sharon Carter's head. We find out that she is still alive. As you kind of get to the like as that piece happens, you hear Okoye, and you break from the video and go back to reality. And Spidey's like, oh, I was showing Banner like the rules or whatever. And Okoye is like, hey, we've got. She introduces herself to Banner first, and then is like, we've gotten some news over the wire, and you get this gorgeous shot as they come out of the subway car they're in. You find out that they're not in the subway or on the tracks anywhere. Spider-Man has created a webbing between the buildings of the city that are holding like 5 different subway cars up. That's kind of created their home base that the zombies can't get to, which I thought was really, really dope. And the image and the shot of it, the way they animated it, just so pretty. Again, and I mean, that's not one of the ones I think I'd hang on my wall, but so much of the imagery in the show is like, click, snag that, and throw it up on the wall in a frame. But from there, she tells him that we've gotten another piece of communication where there's a supposed survivor colony that thinks that they've found a cure. And when they take a look at the encryption and stuff, like they can't figure anything out. And as they break it down, like Bucky's looking at it, I think Banner says something that kind of triggers something for Bucky. And like, oh, I bet you don't know where this is going. He's like, Sharon, does that look like anything to you? And she's like, yeah, that's Camp Lehigh in New Jersey. We're going back to Captain America's home, man, like where he became Captain America. Well, I guess he became Captain America in the city, but where he was trained as a soldier in Lehigh, New Jersey. We're going back there once again. You see Happy driving everybody to Grand Central and kind of makes a crack at like, even though like we're in a zombie apocalypse, somehow I'm still the driver. And I think Okoye calls him an Uber driver. He's like, I'm a chauffeur. You get this nice little back and forth again. Okoye dropping lines throughout this whole episode. And then all of a sudden, like, a giant zombie shows up right in front of the windshield, and you're like, oh no! And then the car blows up, and you're like, oh, they were tiny, the zombie is regular size, but when they come back to full size, boom! Again, the zombie explodes. And or I guess the first time, that's the first zombie that we see explode. We'll see a few throughout the episode. And once they get to Grand Central, following that, Happy's like, we made it! Okoye says, all right, I want to split everybody up. Like Banner, Parker, Hope, Kurt, Banner, Parker, Hope, you go to the subway station. Kurt thinks things are going to get crazy down there, so he's like, I'm game to go with them. And then that would leave her, Happy, Bucky, and Agent Carter to guard the perimeter. And Peter immediately is like, you want to split? Have you guys never seen a horror movie? Like, splitting up is a bad idea. And Okoye, again, the line's so good. She's like, we don't need them. We have American reality shows. Hey! Like, nail him with the humor, Okoye. I love it. And then that's even followed up with, like, a kind of from Kurt, who goes, boom goes the dynamite. Solid burn on all of us. And then we kind of see the group split up. And you get down to the subway train, and the train has no power once they get on it. So, Hope's like, don't worry, I'll go spark it from the inside. We cut back, you see Okoye and Bucky are kind of doing a patrol in the main hall of Grand Central, and you see a shadow come up behind them that is very clearly a zombie Falcon, and I was like, oh, we're getting zombie Falcon too? Like, come on, baby, I'm about this. And we go back, we see Hope. She can't get anything started. She's like, we're going to need to give it a push. I think Das Malchian asked Banner if the big green guy can come, and because Banner's having that issue, he's like, he's not an option. And Spidey's like, I got an idea. I think this will work, because he says something about slingshotting, and all of a sudden Spidey's like, oh, I got it. Like, I know exactly what to do. Then we see Happy is walking down some of the other hallways with Carter, and he hears something get spooked, and he's got the Iron Man glove on. So when he gets spooked, he's like, blam, 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 just shooting off bursts into the darkness, not hitting anything. And like he gets to like the last one, he's like, blam, and he stops, and Carter's like, did you just say blam out loud, and he's like, no, and then he hears something else, and he goes, blam, blam, blam. Or no, I'm sorry, he's by her, and he says no, and the next thing you know, an arrow comes through his shoulder that's attached to a giant string and starts to pull him. And as he's pulling, he goes blam, blam, blam into the darkness and disappears. And then Carter gets on the walkie, or on their comms bit, and is like, Happy got taken, and she gets an arrow to the shoulder and is then pinned to the wall. And she's like, it's zombie Hawkeye. And you see the shot of Bucky and Okoye, you hear them listening, they hear that it's zombie Hawkeye, and they're both like, oh no, and all of a sudden we see Falcon come flying in. We jump back to Carter, who's reaching for her gun, but she can't get it because she's pinned to the wall. We see Hawkeye and zombie Happy coming for her. We jump back. We now see what Spidey's up to. He's shot his webs on the front of the train, and he's pulling, creating kind of like a tension force to kind of do a reverse slingshot with the train. So you see him pulling it back. Okoye flies after Falcon, basically. Falcon does a swoop, I think, after he hits Bucky. She jumps on his back, has her spear across his neck, is almost trying to steer him, and he swoops down and takes her to what is an underpass or an overpass kind of place inside of Grand Central, where she has to jump off. So she ends up on the top end, he goes under the tunnel spot, and then you see Bucky shooting at him. And he eventually gets kicked as Falcon kind of comes through. He protects himself with the shield, which one of those things. There's a lot of stuff actually in this episode that was really elevated because we got those live action shows for WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So you see Falcon come in and do something that we've seen him do a bunch. Blocks everything, and then kind of kicks Bucky. And we jump back to Agent Carter, who is now obtained or she's still up against the wall, and Happy is getting really close to her with the glove on his hand, and she's just like, sorry, Happy. And as he's charging up, she turns it, blasts him in the face, and I think takes the arrow out and then puts the gauntlet on, or the glove on her hand. And then we jump back. She says blam too as it happens, and you see Hawkeye and the other zombies closing in. So she turns it and she's like, psh, and after it hits him, she just goes blam. It's like, oh man, poor Happy. We love Happy, and Happy's now a dead zombie. But you see everybody else coming in after her. Okoye comes flying through the air and just splits Falcon right down the middle. I mean, there is some gruesome stuff in this episode, and it all works so well, because it's a zombie story, but because it's animated, they're not holding back, man. So we see, boom, splits Falcon in half, and then, she goes, that was your friend. Sorry about that. And Bucky, in sheer Bucky fashion, again, something that is elevated and heightened because of back and forth we got to see, and the closer relationship we got to see with them on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, when he goes, I should be sad, but I'm not. Then we go back, and now Carter has taken Happy's glove, as Hawkeye just misses her head, and she makes a run for the train. At this point, you go back to Peter, who's gone back as far as he can. He's like, I got to think about 4,000 pounds of thrust going right now. We should be good. And Banner's like, just hold tight, Pete. They're almost here. And that's when you start to see the zombies coming out of the shadows behind Peter. And one gets close enough where it's starting to nip at his head. And that's when you see, once again, the cape comes in and saves the day and knocks off the stuff around Peter, saves him. You even get Banner going, yeah, cape again. He's cheering the cape on as he keeps seeing the cloak of levitation save everybody on its own accord. Hope then shrinks down to Wasp size and goes out and just starts blasting all the zombies, trying to clear a path so that they can't get to Peter. As all that's happening, you see Carter, Bucky, Okoye, they get on the train. Hope comes flying back in, and Peter is like, okay, and he's like, all right, let go of the brake, and it launches the train right at Pete, and Pete really doesn't have anywhere to go because he's pulling, so he can't snap himself forward. So what happens? Cloak wraps up the top of Pete, crashes through the windshield, and lands with Pete safe. Everybody's on. Everybody's good, and then you see he actually kind of puts himself on Spidey, and as Spidey walks in, he's wearing it, and McQuay's like, yeah, you look good in the cape, it suits you, but not masked, which is one of those things where I was like, I wonder if we'll get another time with him, because granted in the trailers we don't see him masked, but in the main poster image we've always seen Spider-Man masked with the cloak. But we don't get that here, and we won't get that again this episode. But maybe we see Spider-Man and the group that's left come back later. But now we're on the train, As it's going, all of a sudden you hear that familiar whooshing sound of what sounds kind of like Cap's shield, and you hear something land on top of the cars, and Carter's like looking up at like what's going on, and sure enough, Captain America shows up, he just gets onto the train, and she's like, oh no, and you get like you hear the scream, and they cut to Bucky. Bucky hears it, he turns, and he's like, Sharon, and he runs, and Cap is already just like eating her, like pulling stuff out of her neck, and Buck's like, all right, Cap, I think this is enough. And they get ready to face off, and that's where you get this shot, gorgeous shot, where like Cap pulls up the shield, and it's right in front of him. It's got blood splatter all over it, and then they're showing like the jowls, and like his jaw is like missing skin and stuff, so it's like hanging, which is gruesome. You see Bucky getting ready. They both yell. They run at each other. Bucky's shooting, Cap's blocking everything, and then they get into like a legit like kind of fight. You start seeing them kind of go a little combat. As Sharon come at Bucky, Bucky just kind of knocks her to the side, and as she gets up, Hope shrinks down and flies right into her mouth. And as soon as she did it, I was like, oh man, they're gonna go there. And sure enough, like Cap gets knocked back. He opts to throw the shield. Bucky catches it, spins it around back at Cap, cuts Cap clean in half at the doorway. And Bucky's like, sorry, Cap, and you see Cap spill out in two pieces. He takes the shield back, puts it on. Hope then expands full, and much like the car took out one zombie, she makes this zombie, or the zombie Sharon, explode, and then is like, guys, I'm covered in Sharon, and Okoye again is just in the background like, oh, the kid has hand sanitizer. And then Banner points out that he thinks she's in trouble, and you look, and she's got a cut on her arm, and you're like, oh no, Hope just saved the day, and now she's going to be a zombie. So then we see them reading her vitals, they're dropping, things aren't looking good. She's like, you know what you got to do. And Okoye's like, no, we could be on the verge of going to find a cure right now. But Hope's more of the, like, kind of like, with the pessimistic answer of like, you might be trying to do that, but if there isn't one, I could be putting you all in danger. And Pete's like, no, like that's not like what's going on. Like this is hope. The only way you get through the zombie apocalypse is with hope, and that also happens to be your name. So there's got to be like some kind of like double meaning there. And she's like, how do you do it, Pete? Like how do you stay so upbeat? And he's like, well, I've had practice between my mom, my dad, Uncle Ben, Aunt May. Now Happy, and you're like, poor Pete, man, he just can't ever get a win. But nevertheless, all of that training has made him, try to look at things in a more positive manner. And Hope certainly, envies that in Pete. And then all of a sudden the train dies, like just outside of Camp Lehigh. Like they're maybe a couple 100 yards away, but between them and the camp is a swarm of zombies that is just massive. Like it is so big. And immediately Hope is just like, all right, I know what I have to do. And she pretty much sacrifices herself to save everybody. So like, we can't go through, but Hope's like, but you can go over. And she makes herself real big, scoops everybody up, and you just see this wonderful sequence of her walking like in slow-mo toward, the camp, kicking zombies off her, and climbing up her legs like slowly. And, she gets there, puts them all on the other side, and as she pulls away, she just looks at Pete. She's like, Pete, smile for me. Like, make sure you smile. Like, knowing that another person that he knows and cares about, obviously, because he's been, for the last 2 weeks, working with Hope, to try to save stuff. And before he loses another one, she's just like, smile for me, Pete. Like, really, really nice sentimental touch. And a really, really well-delivered line from Lily. And then we are in Camp Lehigh, very familiar grounds for us. And right away, Bucky's like, why aren't they climbing over the fences? And Peter's like, they don't even need to climb over the fences. And you see there's a giant hole in the fence. And all the zombies are just standing there, not like moving, not doing anything. And the next thing you know, you get Kurt going, I can sense Baba Yaga. And they're like, who's Baba Yaga? And he's like, like the witch that hides in the shadows and comes again. And you're like, yes. Like, brilliant to bring up Baba Yaga, because that's something that's tied directly to Desmalchian's character, Kurt. But also kind of a little bit of foreshadowing for the witch that we will see at the end of the episode. And on the first watch, I didn't even put the two together. I was just like, oh man, what a nice nod to the fact that he always brings up Baba Yaga. So right as he's saying that, Peter comes up from behind him to say something, and like Kurt jumps through the roof. He's like, "Oh my gosh, dude, I'm so sorry. I just like jump scared you, and I totally didn't mean to do that." And then Vision all of a sudden shows up and jump scares both of them, and he shows up to pretty much explain everything. So he's like, takes them down into the bunker that we've seen the Avengers go to more often than not. Anytime they're at Camp Lehigh, and he explains that there's a frequency. Because of this quantum disease, the way that it works, the frequency of the Mind Stone seems to cancel everything out. And it was one of those things when Vision showed up and started to say it, like Banner, being the genius, is like, oh, now I see why they're not doing anything. And they figure out that like this frequency is basically the cure. And Vision kind of walks them through, like he started running experiments, and lo and behold was able to reverse somebody, and all of a sudden you hear Scott's voice, and he makes like a big like entrance like announcement type thing, and is nowhere to be seen. He's like, "Son of a, can somebody spin me around? I really gotta get this motorized. It's like killing my entrance." And there he is, just sitting in a glass jar. It's Scott's head. That's the only thing that Vision was able to save. And I guess with his technological advancements and things that he knows, he was able to preserve Scott just as his head. Which is really, really funny. And then Scott just starts delivering all these dad jokes. And throughout the rest of the episode, we get plenty. But some of my favorite that pop out right at the top. He's like, he's talking about, surviving or whatever. He's like, yeah, just can't let it go to my head. This is all he has is his head. And he's like, yeah, I get, when I'm nervous, I resort to dad jokes. And then at one point, somebody else like brings up Hank, and they're talking about that. And he's like, "Man, what I wouldn't give to get chewed out by that ugly grump just one more time." And he's like, "Oh man, I did it again, zombie puns." So I love having Rudd there for all of that stuff. He brings some wonderful humor and levity to an episode again that's pretty dark, but unlike the bleakness of Doctor Strange, there's some bleakness hanging out there. But the humor is much stronger in this episode and really cuts some of that gruesome and that terrifying stuff. And then Banner gets super excited. He's like, "Oh man, well that's all we gotta do is just broadcast it from a satellite and we can save the whole world." And every time they say something, Vision's just like, "Well, hypothetically." And like he's like, the problem is like the technology that we need to do it is like way beyond that of what humans have access to. And then Okoye is like, "Not in Wakanda," and you're like, okay, yes, they've got a plan now. We got to go back to Wakanda with the Mind Stone. And all of a sudden you're like, man, this is starting to seem eerily similar to Infinity War, which again was not something I was thinking on the first pass. But when you've seen the episode and you see how they're lining everything up, you're like, oh man, they're making nods to Infinity War, which is totally what they're setting up by the end of the episode. Just zombies instead of non-zombies. And then she also mentions that it's like the last safe place for humans because of the shield. Like Wakanda's hidden, and the zombies definitely have not gotten there yet. So Bucky's like, all right, I'm gonna go find a ride, and Vision's like, don't do that. You're not gonna find what you're looking for. Kind of, again, one of those kind of like horror movie moments where it's like somebody knows something bad. It's like, no, don't go there. That's not gonna end well. And you're like just immediately like, what is? I don't even know what that means. Like, what could Vision be getting at? And then Banner notices, like, on the computers, oh man, you've gotten other responses to the calls. And Peter's like, well, where are all the survivors? And that's when we go back to Bucky, who's now like looking for like a vehicle of some kind, and you hear something just lurking in the background, and you can see there's a zombie. And Bucky like spins and he shoots twice, and it hits glass. However, it cracks that glass, and on the other side you can see Wanda is hanging out on the other side, and you're like, oh no, that glass is uh-oh. And just before he goes any further, you hear T'Challa call out, and basically, he's like, stop, like, you're gonna anger her, and like, we don't want that. And Bucky goes, he's like, what happened? And he saves him. They go back, and as I think Vision is starting to apologize for what he's done, Bucky and T'Challa come in, and he's like, he's been taking all the humans and feeding them to her. Like, like, I thought, like, he saved me. He picked me up in San Fran. I thought I was saved, and he's just been using us as food for Wanda. And Vision's like, look, I'm sorry, but I had to do whatever I could, for love. And like at one point, like I think Scott even tries. He's like, well, Vision's defense, nah, I got nothing. Like killing humans to keep Wanda alive, that doesn't make any sense. And then Peter's like, but wait, you found the cure for the head. Why didn't you just get it for Wanda too? And he's like, her magic is too strong. Like she can block it from happening. And the only course of action that Vision had was to contain her and her hunger, and the way to contain it was to feed her live specimens. And then Okoye immediately said, why not just eliminate her then? And Vision's like, I can't. Like, I love her too much. And that's, again, one of these notes during the show where having the other Disney Plus shows really elevates that beat. Like, hearing, Bettany break up and clearly struggling with his feelings and what was right and wrong, like, that hits so much harder when you're really able to understand the love that they have that's established in WandaVision. I love that stuff. And then, sure enough, zombie Wanda shows up, and she is terrifying. Like, almost on that Scarlet Witch tip, but not quite there. But as a zombie, like, just as scary as the Scarlet Witch. And I love that when she shows up, we get this hard shift in tone of the score, and it goes to this boom, boom, boom. Like, it's really dark, heavy tone. You're like, oh man, whatever's about to happen is not good. And sure enough, friggin' poor Kurt gets just like, oh no, Baba Yaga, I'm done. And you see him get pulled by her magic. She clearly eats him, and then she, finally full on emerges. That's where we finally see her, and she's looking badass. She floats up. She's got the door. She throws it at Bucky, which creates like something that bumps into the chair that Scott's on. As his head is about to fall out, freaking cloak of levitation, man, grabs him. The thing is saving everybody, and then attaches itself to Scott, and Scott's head can now float around via the cloak. So that, I think, is going to be the Cape's new home, which is why we probably won't see Spider-Man in the mask and the cape, but maybe if they come back, we could get that. But then we see Spider-Man shooting up Wanda, just wrapping her up in all the webs, as Banner pleads with Vision to just kind of help get them out. And Vision's like, you know what, you're right. And he puts a hole through the wall with the Mind Stone. You see everybody come out. You hear Scott scream, Wingardia Leviosa! And that feels like a Paul Rudd improv. You know what I mean? Like, you're flying around. What would you say, Paul Rudd? Like, just nails that. And then as they're getting away, Okoye gets dead stopped in her tracks. And you'd seen Wanda break out of the webbing, and, Black Panther's like, no, and, she just goes, my king, Wakanda forever, gets pulled away, and then Vision proceeds to cut a hole around the entire building, and you just see the whole building collapse into the earth. And you hear him telling everyone, like, go take the quad jet over there, and they're like, you're not going to come. He's like, I have to atone for what I've done here, and I can't leave her. And the next thing you know, he rips the stone out of his head. It falls to the ground. He goes full white ghost vision. He collapses, and Bruce picks the stone up. And it's like one of these things where it's like, are we at another spot in the timeline where it's like, it's a point that just cannot be changed. Like, Vision always either has to have it destroyed or ripped right out of his friggin' skull. Just poor guy, he can't get a win. And again, that's a beat that hits really hard because of all the stuff that we've, taken away from WandaVision. And then as soon as he dies, here come all the zombies, man. Like, nothing's stopping them. And as you see Banner take the stone, Wanda comes up out of the rubble, and as everybody's running away, Bucky's like, you guys keep going, I'll occupy her. And he immediately takes aim and he starts shooting at Wanda, and she just slowly stops all the bullets and then sends them right back at Bucky, who stops them with the shield. And then Wanda just straight up picks up Bucky with her powers and just blasts him, like, way, way far away. Like, Bucky's made, he survived some pretty ridiculous falls in his day, so maybe he's not alive, but clear indication was like, boom, bye, see ya, Bucky. And as he flies away, that's where she finally sees Banner, as he's the last one into the hangar. And as he's kind of opening the doors up, T'Challa, Spidey, and Scott are in the quad jet, and Wanda comes full on after Hulk. And he just puts up his arm, and as she bites, it goes full green. And he's like, nice save, buddy. And he's able to, like, throw her back, and, then he runs inside the quad jet, and T'Challa can't get it started. He's like, I'll buy you guys some time. And he runs back out, and he just starts running at all the zombies. And he's talking to Hulk. He's like, come on, buddy. Like, now would be a great time to, like, really show up, man. I really could use you. Much like we saw in Ragnarok. And as he runs, instead of, like, bouncing off of the Rainbow Bridge, he runs into all the zombies and then just gets engulfed. And, T'Challa's trying to get it to work. Nothing is working up at all of a sudden you're starting to see the pile of zombies lift up, and you're like, yes, here comes the Hulk, and boom, he busts out and just goes Hulk on all of the zombies. And then sure enough, T'Challa, as him and Wanda start fighting, T'Challa is able to get the jet going. They take off, and you just hear Scott go, "We did it!" And Peter immediately is like, "No, don't say that. You're gonna jinx it." Like, has literally nobody watched a horror movie? And as soon as that happens, who starts standing up? But giant freaking Hope Van Dyne, man, like huge wasp grabs the Quinjet, and you just have this moment where like she's holding it, it's trying to pull away, and T'Challa throws all the thrusters. Whew, it bursts off. It finally takes off, and like they've escaped. And then you see Hope like reach down, pick up a zombie, and just chucks it at the Quinjet. And for a hot second, you're like, "Oh no, man, it's gonna go down." And it just bounces off the Quinjet, and they're able to take off, which is great. And as they approach Wakanda from there, like Peter talks about how like, a year ago, Tony had asked him to be an Avenger. He said no, and now he's the only one left. And, like, Scott makes a joke, like, well, I'm here. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're an Avenger. He's like, well, maybe not officially, but, yeah, like, I'm definitely an Avenger in heart. And, T'Challa's like, we need a little heart now. And as they fly off to Wakanda, you're thinking, like, you're not even... I was so caught up, I wasn't even like, oh, here comes the end of the episode. Like, we're going to Wakanda, we're going to save the day. And Uatu comes in and is like, sometimes... a universe will just show you that its heroes will go to any length that they need to go to save the day, even if that might cause the end of the world. And you see them flying into Wakanda, and then they cut to freaking zombie Thanos standing up, and he holds up the gauntlet, which I guess it's right. It holds up the gauntlet, and you see all of the stones are on his fingers. The only stone missing is the Mind Stone, and you're like, oh, dude, like they just teed it up like Infinity War, like I said at the beginning. Thanos is going to be coming for that Mind Stone in Wakanda, and you could have like a Wakandan zombie battle for everything, which would be so cool. I was like even more disappointed that the episode was over right there, because I was like, man, that would have been something to see. And I really, really, really hope that we get to go back at some point and see zombie Thanos taking on what's left of the Avengers, because that would be so dope. Like it's one of the things, like they've done it, in all of the episodes for the most part, where they lay it out something that you're like, I really want to see that now. This one, more than any other, I need that episode. Like, some of the way things have ended has kind of left it open for a potential way for these characters to come together, and that's still in play theoretically here as well. But man, do I want to see zombie Thanos taking on the Avengers. But that wraps up everything from What If Zombies. Fantastic episode. Like, I had an absolute ball. It was so enjoyable on the first, and even more enjoyable on the second watch as you start to pick up on things. Everything this episode works. The only reason that I have it slightly below 2 and 4 is because just what those stories did, like as far as the emotional weight and the storytelling weight. Like, this was just a perfectly fun episode, and I again really, really want to go back to it. But the question, now that I'm done talking about all the spoilers, is what are you guys thinking, man? Is this a world you want to go back to? Do you want to go back to the world of zombie Avengers? Do you want to see zombie Thanos take on whatever Avengers are left in Wakanda? What things pop for you? This is a spoiler review, so go nuts, man. Let me know what you liked about the animation. What moments were surprising to you? Was it when Wanda showed up? Was it when Vision ripped the stone out of his head? Was it Cap v Bucky? Was it, Banner versus Wong, Strange, and Tony? Like, what was working for you? Did you like Spider-Man in the Cloak of Levitation? Did you like Scott as a head in the Cloak of Levitation? Like, so many good things in this episode. So anything that was working for you, I want to know about it. If this episode didn't hit for you, I want to know that too. And let me know why. Like, what wasn't working? What would you have liked to have seen instead? What things could have been better? And if you haven't watched the episode, well, I'm sorry if you've watched this entire review, because you've basically now heard the whole episode. But if maybe you just skipped to the end after the beginning of my stuff and didn't go through the whole thing, what are you thinking, man? Are you interested? Is this something you want to see? Anything you got, good, bad, indifferent, on What If Episode 5, What If Zombies down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you guys down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with C-Man, whether it's any Wednesday where we're talking What If, Thursdays where right now we got American Horror Story double feature going on. I'm reviewing stuff. I'm doing TVs, movie, trailer reactions. You want to be here for all of it. You just like what I'm doing. You want to show a little love and support. Well, hey, come join C-Maniac Nation. Super easy to do. Just jump over there. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for C-Man Cinema, sit down. I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.